My name is Anders. I used to work as a receptionist at a hospital, specifically in the morgue department. My job involved handling the records of deceased individuals. The process was straightforward. Bodies would arrive, I would lock them in, and their relatives would identify them before completing the necessary paperwork to take the bodies for burial or cremation. I had been working there for quite some time, long enough to become desensitized to the sight of dead bodies. Initially, it was unsettling, but eventually, I got used to it. You could say I had become numb to the fear that typically surrounds such a place. One day, a patient was rushed into the hospital in critical condition. He had been in a car accident. The doctors did everything they could to save him, but his injuries were too severe. After 2 hours of desperate efforts, he passed away. The doctors completed their formalities and sent the body down to my department. As usual, I logged in into the system and placed the body into one of the morgue chambers for safekeeping. A little while later, I decided to take a break and went to the cafeteria for some coffee and a quick snack. When I returned to my desk, I noticed a woman approaching the reception area. Assuming she had some business in the morgue, I hurried to my seat before she got there. As she reached the desk, she said, "My husband was brought here earlier today after a car accident. I was told his body is in your department. May I see him?" Her words confirmed what I had suspected. She was the wife of the man who had passed away an hour earlier. I asked her for his name and the case number. After matching the details, I took her to the morgue. We stopped in front of the chamber where her husband's body was stored. I pulled the chamber out, revealing the body. As soon as she saw him, she broke down in tears. Her grief was palpable, raw, and heart-wrenching. She held her husband's hand and sobbed uncontrollably. I gently reminded her, "Ma'am, I'm sorry, but you're not allowed to touch the body while it's in our custody. Once the paperwork is complete and the body is released, you can do so." She nodded, threw her hairs, and I stepped away to give her some privacy. I returned to my desk and sat down, glancing occasionally toward the chamber. At one point, I looked over and froze. What I saw made my blood run cold. The woman was still holding her husband's hand and crying, but the shocking part was, her husband's hand was gripping hers back. At first, I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me. I blinked a few times, but the scene remained the same. The dead man who had been lifeless in the chamber not long ago was now holding his wife's hand, and I could hear him crying too. My mind was racing. Was this real? Was I imagining things? I had no idea what to do, so I ran to inform the doctors who had treated him. I found one of the doctors and explained the entire situation to him. He seemed skeptical but followed me back to the morgue. When we entered, everything appeared normal again. The body was lying still in the chamber, and there was no sign of the woman. The doctor looked at me with confusion and mild annoyance, clearly thinking I had wasted his time. "Close the chamber and get back to work," he said before leaving. I stood there, staring at the lifeless body, questioning my sanity. Had I really seen what I had thought I saw? That night was the longest and most terrifying night of my life. When I finally got home, I couldn't sleep. The image of the dead man gripping his wife's hand replayed in my mind over and over. The next day, I returned to work. The man's father had arrived to claim the body. He was an elderly gentleman, frail but composed. As I handed over the paperwork, I asked him about the deceased's family. He sighed deeply and said, "It's just me now. My son lost his wife to a heart attack about a month ago. Since then, it's been just the two of us." His words hit me like a ton of bricks. If his wife had died a month ago, who was the woman I spoken to last night? And what about the crying and the hand gripping? To this day, I have no explanation. That night has haunted me ever since, and I doubt I'll ever forget it. My name is Henry, and I used to work as a night security guard outside a hospital. Over the years, I had heard countless rumors about strange occurrences in the hospital, but I always dismissed them as baseless stories. With 5 to 6 years of experience in this line of work, I thought I had seen it all. That was until something happened that shook me to my core, a moment that still haunts me to this day. The hospital where I worked wasn't particularly extraordinary. My job was straightforward: keep watch, open doors for visitors, and run errands for the staff when needed. Over time, I became familiar with the doctors, nurses, and other employees. Among them was Dr. Sophia. A senior physician, she was not just highly respected but also kind-hearted. Dr. Sophia and I shared a friendly rapport. Every time her car pulled up in front of the hospital, I'd open the door for her and greet her warmly. She would often smile back and sometimes even bring me small treats or snacks. Whether it was a New Year's party or Christmas, she always made an effort to include me, offering help when I needed it. Her kindness earned a special place in my heart. But then, something strange happened. Dr. Sophia stopped coming to work. Days turned into weeks, and her absence became noticeable. I asked the other staff members about her, and they'd assure me she wasn't feeling well but would return soon. One night, while on duty, I noticed a familiar figure walking toward the hospital entrance. It was Dr. Sophia. I was relieved and happy to see her after so long. I stood up from my chair, ready to greet her and ask about her health. But as she walked closer, something felt off. She didn't acknowledge me. No smile, no nod, nothing. "Dr. Sophia?" I called out. "How are you? Is everything okay? We've missed you around here." But she just kept walking, completely ignoring me. It was so unlike her. I tried to brush it off, convincing myself that maybe she was stressed or lost in her thoughts. The rest of the night, I couldn't shake this strange encounter. Why had she ignored me? What could be bothering her so much that she didn't even respond? When my shift ended, I decided to inquire about her at the reception desk. "Hey, is Dr. Sophia here?" I asked the receptionist. The receptionist gave me a puzzled look. "Are you joking?" Confused, I replied. "No, I saw her this morning. She came in for her shift." The receptionist's expression turned serious. "Henry," she said, "Dr. Sophia passed away last night. She died around 2 a.m. I felt the ground beneath me shift. That's impossible." I stammered. "I saw her this morning. I greeted her when she walked in." But as I spoke to other staff members, the horrifying truth sank in. Dr. Sophia had indeed died the previous night. What I saw wasn't her. It couldn't have been. For days, I couldn't think straight. The image of her walking past me, silent and cold, replayed in my mind. Was it a hallucination, a figment of my imagination, or something far more sinister? Whatever it was, it left a lasting scar on me. A few weeks later, I resigned from my job. To this day, I can't explain what I saw, but one thing is certain: it wasn't a dream. Even now, every time I pass by that hospital, I feel a chill run down my spine.